we are. Hello, welcome. It's lovely to see you today. I am Briar Harvey. This is the Neurodivergent Media Network, and this is our premiere episode of Neurodivergent Networking, which a lot of people have asked me for, and I called Cheryl because she actually likes networking, whereas I just tolerate it. So, truly, the theme of this entire series is you're going to be making this too fucking hard, and we would like for you to stop making it so hard. And you're probably not going to want to hear that, but that is the essence of it. Today, we're going to talk about why we make it so hard, and then we'll talk at the end about what else we're going to cover in this series. And Cheryl has fucking pages and pages of notes at this point in time, y'all. So I'm just going to hand it over and say, let's do this.
Why, thank you. And for the record, I tolerate networking, which to me are the steps required to build relationships. Mm-hmm. I love making friends, though.
See, and I don't even really like making friends. I'm autistic, and I would really rather just hang out in my bedroom for the rest of my life and pet cats and color and read books. And if I could do that, I absolutely would.
Yes, which is why a lot of us ended up online in the first place.
That's correct.
A lot of us would have rather do that. But then, as this whole space evolved, we kind of found out that you can't really do business on the internet without doing all the stuff that you did offline. You're just now doing it from your bedroom with your cats. So
that's mostly correct. Yes.
Yeah. There are ways to do it that are leveraged, and some people find their ways on Amazon and Creative Market. But for the most part, you have to send the damn email, which, per your request, is the title of the first episode.
That's correct.
Of this podcast series. And I'm super excited for this because when you messaged me, I was actually working on something of a framework for this to teach it. I mentioned this to you. And I've been studying and studying and studying. And I've been studying a lot of neurotypicals frameworks. And I have some friends who have done a whole lot of networking stuff. And, I've absorbed a lot of their materials over the years. And unfortunately, the bulk of their advice just comes down to the one thing that nobody actually wants to hear, which is send the damn email. But today, I want to talk a little bit about how and why it's so hard, and why you as a neurodivergent person and us as neurodivergent people might actually be better at sending the damn email.
Thank you, Lorraine, for being my guinea pig here. And I know you don't send them. I have actual networks, and I'm terrible about them. So I feel like we don't talk enough about the why we don't send to them and the how to get over it. Because thank you. Lorraine says I send amazing email, and thank you. Every time there is absolutely this certainty that everyone's going to hate me for it. Every fucking time. That never goes away. Never goes away.
And also, just to be clear, though, here, I'm not talking about your marketing emails. Like, I'm terrible at those. I'm not talking about emailing your list. I'm talking about, like, one-on-one, hey, this person seems cool and or might be a client and or maybe we could collaborate. I should introduce myself to them emails. Yeah. So use email, use DM, use carrier pigeon, use lumpy mail, send a freaking letter. I don't care. Use whatever the stand-in is appropriate. We're calling that send the damn email today. And it's hard because you send the thing and you do the thing and RSD kicks in majorly before you even send it, right? So you're sitting there and you're like, I should email that person because they would be so cool to know, but they already hate me and they don't even know who I am, right? And if I introduce myself, then that's just going to confirm for them and me how much they don't like me, right? I know that's
about the gist of it. I mean, RSD is a real bitch.
Right? It's like that nagging voice in your head that says all of the terrible things that you think about yourself, but like pretends like they're true and not you saying them in your head. It's like an external terrible voice in your head. And so we don't send the email because we're afraid that that person doesn't like us and that we're going to hear back from them that they don't like us, or worse, we're going to hear nothing. And then the wild assumption fairies get to drop little gifts in our lap of
Oh man,
what
about
they must think.
why they didn't respond. And listen,
Mhm.
y'all, this is true even with people you know and have relationships with. Uh,
Oh my God.
I do this with friends that I know and love, but if I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks, my immediate assumption is I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah,
that they're busy, not that they have a life, not that they have ADHD and just didn't respond to that email that I sent. Those
okay.
things don't come into the
I
equation at
have
all.
words on this because we're all sitting here with like 10 DMs unanswered in our inboxes that we want to answer but can't. But if someone else isn't replying to us, it's because we're stupid and they hate us and not because they're just like us and kind of unable to do that. And also, Laureen is watching this. How many times have I messaged her saying, like, I've always felt like you don't like me, but I keep messaging you anyway, like something to that effect. She's laughing watching this right now. I know this because I've told her that. But it's like our brain tricks us into thinking preemptively that we're not going to be liked. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's not going away. That feeling is there and it's still going to be there whether you send the email or not.
Mhm.
No amount of mindset work, no amount of therapy, unfortunately, and pretty much no medication is going to fix the fact that you are utterly convinced that you might actually die if you send the email. So you kind of might have to do it anyway.
You know, I think there is some research, but not enough, around the idea that RSD is ancestral and fear based, especially for us, that because neurodivergent people were probably the night owls and the night watchers and
Mhm.
the other elements of society, because we still are, that in those days, this instinct was actually functional. It was good for things. It warned us that danger was coming. But now we're just stuck with this legacy of constant danger when there is none.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And there's some evidence that cortisol plays a really strong role in this, and cortisol activation, just kind of carrying through your day, plays a really strong role in this. And I've found through some of my research and reading that the things that actually use cortisol for what it was intended to be used for, like to make your body move to get away from a predator or things like that, can actually reduce those cortisol levels and make it easier to take the actions. Whatever can increase your feelings of safety, increase your ability to do the thing. So one of the things is, like, one of the reasons we don't send the emails because we don't know what to say, right? So that increases the fear of rejection because we're going to say the wrong thing, or we don't know who we're going to send it to. And we're going to talk in a later episode about figuring out who to send it to and when and why and all those other things. But building in all those little strategy pieces and not just blindly sending emails to whomever help increase those feelings of safety. Just like having someone that you can vent to if someone ever were to do the unthinkable and respond unfavorably to an email. Like, I know if I did that to one of my idols and they hurt my feelings, I could come back and just say, Briar, I sent this email, this person said this, and you would build me back up because you're one of my business besties. And that's what we do for each other. We talk each other up and how badass and awesome we are. And having people like that to help build you back up, and knowing who they will be when sending the email goes wrong, means that you have a plan. And so it's less unknown. The rejection still might happen, but what's going to happen when the rejection happens is less unknown, and therefore it's less scary, right? So
I
lot
got a
of
rejection letter this weekend, in fact, that I had really, it was a speaking gig that I had wanted. And I had talked about it with people and talked it up. And when the no came, it didn't even hurt that bad because I had done all the prep work before. But this is a habit. These are rituals that you build, and it takes time.
Yeah, it takes a ton of time and it takes practice. Like people don't realize that dealing with rejection sensitivity is I'm going to hate using this term, and Laureen, please forgive me for saying this out loud, but it's a form of exposure therapy to a certain extent. You do need to expose yourself to it, but not in the unprepared way. You need to have a plan and you need to be able to practice using that plan. So if you never put yourself out there to potentially be rejected, the likelihood of being able to use the systems and things that you build to keep yourself safe is very low, right? But a lot of this then makes us turn in the complete opposite direction, and we start relying on templates and automations. And I made a note earlier today. I was like on with a client and I wrote down templates and automations are RSD tools. And they are, because they other the rejection, right? If the email doesn't work, it's not my fault. It was the script, it was the template, it was the automation. They're not replying to us and saying like, you're an annoying person and I hate you. They're like, oh, well, it was a spam bot, so I ignored it. It's not you. It's othering the rejection. They're not saying no because you poured your heart and soul out in an email, right? They're just saying no to this automated thing that they got that they didn't want to get. So it doesn't feel like it hurts as much. The problem is that it also doesn't fucking work. Like
It's
it
such
just,
a fine line because there's so many spammers out there now.
yeah. Yeah. It just, there's so many spammers out there now. You're blending into a sea of noise. It attracts the wrong clients. When it does work, it's still not working, because the only people that you're going to get doing that type of templated automated cold outreach are the low-hanging fruit people who are actively looking for what you want and don't have any other way to get it. If they're
And with
out there looking for it,
ChatGPT, it's so much more, there's a word I'm looking, prolific now.
yes.
Like
Yep.
and it's good enough to get through spam filters a lot of the
Yes.
time. So
Yep.
it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and if you can get it through the spam filter, but you're using a templated email and it looks like a templated email and you're automating these things and you're sending them out and somebody ends up working with you, chances are they don't have anyone else they can rely on to do the thing that you're offering to do for them, which probably means they've burned 6, 7, 8, 10 other service providers trying to do this thing. They're a bad client and you don't. How many of those clients have come to you, Briar, in your work with businesses and said, I have tried working with X amount of service providers to do this thing, and none of them have been good enough. None of them have done this. None of them have done that. They've all, using the all or nothing terms, they have all done XYZ. And those clients have turned out to be a hot mess express handful.
Yeah, I don't actually
Yeah,
work with those people and haven't
exactly.
for many years. And operations in particular is such a small community that, especially if you've named somebody that I know who does good work and they didn't
Yeah.
work for you, we are definitely not working together.
Yeah. Now, that being said, that's not to shame anyone who's currently on this call and has worked with a lot of neurotypical coaches or consultants or courses and tried to implement their stuff and it didn't work. That's a reason that it didn't work. That's not about you. It's about them. We're talking about clients who have tried things that reasonably should have worked that didn't, and we're like their 17th option because they keep burning service providers. Those are the people that say yes to templated cold emails. Those are
Pretty
the people
much.
that's because they have no other option and
Hmm.
they're desperately seeking someone to abuse into doing what they want to do. Don't let it be you, right? Don't let it be you. This is not how we network. These are the spam tools that worked 10 years ago to a certain extent. And that's all they are, right? I was watching this workshop from a LinkedIn guy, right? And he talked about the post-spam era. I was like, yes,
Ooh.
that's where we are now. We are in the post-spam era, right? Like you can't just spray and pray anymore. That does not work. Even the best templated copywritten email sent out 100,000 times is not going to work anymore. Think about how much spam you get in your DMs every day. Like mine's gone down a lot because I unfriended and blocked a ton of people.
Oh, I have good personal filters, so I get very little spam overall. But I will say, even without that, there's an abundance of marketing all the
Yeah,
time,
constantly.
right?
I mean, we're getting the emails that we want. We're getting the emails that we don't want. We're getting the DMs we want and the DMs we don't want. Right now, there's 3 people giving me notifications in my ear because I forgot to silence that tab, right? When I go upstairs, I'm going to be asked for goldfish crackers and some other snack from the 3 neurodivergent kids waiting for me that are jumping on the trampoline. My husband's going to ask me what's for dinner. My sister's going to ask when I can watch her kids next. My friend is going to say, hey, when are we going to that concert? And my brain is going to explode. And if you send me a cold email at that exact moment and it's templated and not relevant to me at all, I might actually respond with animosity if I respond at all. Right? Like there's just so much information and so many demands on our time and our brain space at this point. People don't talk to strangers anymore unless there's a damn good reason. And most people don't give a good enough reason, frankly.
Which is coming back to why we don't send the fucking email in the first place. Because
Right?
when I am bombarded by all of this bad stuff, my immediate response is to go, and I say this as someone who is this week, I have a bunch of advertising emails that I want to send out. This is cold email, y'all. I have a template. I still have to customize it. And there's just this weight about it.
Yeah. But the good thing is the volume of email that actually gets read now is so much lower because the bar for actually paying attention is so much higher, right? And you can't just send genuine connections without putting in a ton of effort. You can't just personalize the first line of an email anymore. You have to write the whole thing every time now. That's how it works. It's your only option. But because the only option is to put in that much effort, like nobody else is putting in that much effort. The barrier to entry is so high, like humans, we're all wired to avoid effort. We will try and find the easiest path to do absolutely anything. So there's a lot less competition in terms of emails that are actually tailored to the person, written directly to that person, not templated, not automated. And you're more likely to develop those genuine connections and collaborations and real friendships and succeed faster if you do those things and put in that effort that very few other people are putting in because they're still convinced that they can scale faster and avoid rejection by using all these automated tools and templates, right?
So what's it actually look like, Cheryl?
So what it actually looks like is understanding that you as a neurodivergent person have a bit of a superpower in this game that other people don't have. And that is,
We normally hate that comparison around
yes,
here, the neurodivergent superpowers. But in this one instance, I'm
yes,
going to allow it.
because it is actually true. In this one instance, it is actually true. And it's not because we're trying to find a silver lining or because we're trying to flip something negative into a positive. It's because in this case, the thing that usually screws us in social situations is going to benefit us immensely when it comes to cold outreach and networking and building relationships.
Tell
And
them
that
why,
is
baby.
our ability to not put up with nuance and bullshit and beating around the bush, and our ability to just speak directly and to the point. The fact that we do not like those multiple layers of communication, the sorting through and having to suss out what someone actually means that we really want to communicate direct and to the point. And we don't like it when other people beat around the bush, right? So
And
we can
remember,
do that.
y'all, the numbers currently indicate that over 70% of entrepreneurs and small business owners are neurodivergent. We can unpack why that is, but mostly we all know it's because we suck at traditional employment. We can't keep a job. So entrepreneurship and business ownership is our only option. And if that's the case, if 70% of us are likely to be neurodivergent, then what it actually means is that if you stop beating around the bush, chances are 70% good that the person you're sending that email to is going to appreciate it.
Yeah. All of those social protection mechanisms that we have, that we put together, and all the masking things that we do, and all the stuff, all the fronts that we put up to try and look neurotypical and not rock the boat that we usually suck at, can be completely pushed aside because they're not needed here. As many as 70% of the people receiving our emails, receiving our outreach, receiving our DMs that we want to connect with, that we want to collaborate with and build relationships with, don't want to figure out what the fuck we're asking them for. They just want us to ask.
So what we're saying is, don't slide into somebody's DMs and be like, "Hi, I've seen you around. You're cool."
Yes,
I definitely
don't
don't want to get that DM myself, so I'm
Hmm.
not sending it.
Right? Okay, because like think about it. When someone sends you an email, right? So like you're gonna assume the person is neurotypical because we don't know any better. And in spite of the fact that 70% of us aren't, for safety reasons, we have to assume they are, right? So your brain starts the masking and scanning process. You're like bloop, 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 and you're looking for the nuance and you're trying to decipher all the code and figure out what they're actually meaning. Because they never just straight up say it. They're always trying to hide what they're doing because being direct is scary to neurotypical people. That's why we have tried to avoid doing it in our outreach. We don't want to reach out to someone and be like, hey, I would love to collaborate with you. I think we have some referrals we could pass back and forth. Let's have a coffee and talk about it. We don't want to say that because if the person's neurotypical, they're not going to take that well. We gotta say, hey, how's the kids? The weather's good. Figure out and navigate what small talk bullshit they want to hear from us,
My
and
worst
then make our way in
nightmare.
there. Right? So we're scanning and we're trying to figure out what exactly they mean. And if you can't figure it out, what do? You either delete the email or you leave the email in your inbox with the intention of replying to it and never actually fucking do. Right? They're doing the same thing. The people you're trying to reach out to are doing the same thing. They are trying to decipher from your email what you actually want. And I've been playing with this. I've been doing a ton of experiments with this on social. So apologies to all my followers who may be watching this now or later. You've been part of a massive social experiment. But I've been playing with, I don't know what we want to call it, the era of directness. Okay? So we'll bring in a nerd reference. We'll call it radical candor if you want to. But this
I
is
like
the
it.
era of just saying what you fucking mean, spelling out, who this is for, what you want from them, what you want them to do, and how they can get it. And it's been converting at a rate that I really cannot quite explain using traditional methods or standards or strategies. Nobody buys, four-figure stuff directly off of a Facebook post, so they say, unless 70% of entrepreneurs are neurodivergent and you're explicit and direct in your messaging and you sell 3 or 4 of them off of a single Facebook post. Holy shnikes.
It's clarity that is missing right now when it comes to outreach, when it comes to networking. And if we assume that what people are actually missing is that clarity, then we have an immediate automatic advantage because we're so good at it.
We are bad at deciphering other people beating around the bush, and we are bad at doing it ourselves. You can ask me a question. I don't care how inappropriate it is of me to answer that question directly. I'm going to do it and probably tell you something that you might not even want to know about me. That's the beauty of me being me and oversharing as a pathological trait. But in doing so, we have this ability to communicate with the rest of the entrepreneurs who are like us that the neurotypicals cannot touch, right? And so I want to talk for a second about like what sending the email can do, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are not, they're used to the cold emails that are just like, hey, we can get your search engine site ranked for like a business you don't even own in a category you don't have, that kind of spam. Or, hey, can we put an article on your site when you don't even run a blog? Like that kind of templated stuff. And that's not what we're talking about here. Not even close. That's gross. I once sent an email to a rather large startup. I was actually a customer of. We're talking, what is that? 9 figures in funding secured in a Series B valuation. Like they were doing great things. I emailed them. I was like, hey guys, I love what you're doing. I also do things. I'd love to do them for you. Let's talk. And he booked the call and it turned into a $40,000 project. Okay. I wish I was joking about how direct that email was, but it literally couldn't have been much longer than that. And yes, there were a couple of calls in between that email and the contract, but that's actually a thing that happened. Like last year, it wasn't even like a decade or anything ago. This is recent history. I have interviewed New York Times bestselling authors because I had the cojones to just up and email them out of nowhere and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. I don't know if you want to participate, but I would like to have you on it. Let's talk. And they did, right? I have talked to every single tourism board in the province of British Columbia that operates in a town of more than 1 million people, and all the regional operators and Tourism BC. I have gotten book recommendations from people like Guy Kawasaki. He actually recommends Persuasion, by the way, by Robert Cialdini. That's the book he recommends to people who want to get better in sales. I have
Seems
gotten
legit.
referrals.
It's a good book.
Yeah. It's an amazing book. It's probably a bit of a boilerplate recommendation, but that's the book he recommends. So let's go for it. I get referrals from clients when I email them because I just email them and ask, and I'm direct. I have an opening at this time for this service for this type of client. Do you know anyone? When I used to send emails that were, hey, how are you doing? How has it been since our service? I got ghosted. Nobody responds to that shit. Like, what are they even supposed to say? When I started saying, hi, John, I have an opening in April for someone for social media management for 3 months in the wine and spirits industry. Would you happen to know of anyone? He gave me phone numbers, email addresses, contact information. Because again, 70% of the people we're talking to are neurodivergent, and the other 30% probably don't have a lot of free time to figure out all of that bullshit.
And when we are direct like this, Cheryl, what is the worst that happens?
Well, a lot of people would say that the worst thing that happens is that they say no and they're really mean to us. But the worst thing that actually happens is they don't respond. And then we spiral into doom, right? And we assume that it's us. But you got to remember, again, 70% of us, they are not ignoring you because they don't like you. They're ignoring you because they can't respond or because it's not relevant to them right now or for any reason other than the fact that you suck. Like, I promise you, there are people probably watching this right now who have emailed me or DM'd me and I haven't responded to them yet. And I still love you very much. I just have executive dysfunction, and so do a lot of the people you're emailing. Okay. It's hard, but it's not actually going to kill you.
I want to follow that up with follow-up because Kimra said that their issue is with following up with the people that we connect with. And I agree. I've talked about this before. I have this set up in my CRM that when I add someone new, I will often add like a follow-up date so that it pops up in my contacts and I know, oh, hey, I haven't talked to this person in 2 months or 2 years because I didn't remember to check in.
Yeah. And like that works for a lot of people. For me, that's a reminder or a task or a notification. And we all know what happens.
Exactly what Cheryl's going to do with a task or a reminder or notification. Fuck all. That's yes.
Dismiss, come back to it later. And then I end up with a giant, overwhelming dismissed list of reminders to follow up with people that I never follow up with. So this is now we're getting into part of this series and some of the stuff I want to teach in this series, because the way that I use social media combined with networking is different from the way most people use social media and networking. I don't tend to do a lot of follow-ups in email in a structured way because I won't. Not because I can't. You know, I probably could set up some automated template-y bullshit that nobody's going to read or listen to, but I won't. I know that I won't. So when I start forming a relationship with someone, I make sure I get them on social media. And I make sure I get them in the DMs, because if we're having a DM conversation, their content's going to show up on my timeline and my content's going to show up on their timeline. And if we start interacting with each other's content, I don't need to worry about setting a reminder to follow up with this person. They're going to be on my feed, and that's going to remind me to follow up with this person when I'm doom scrolling in the bathroom trying to avoid getting ready for work every morning. Right?
And let's be clear, y'all, this is a technique that you can use on any social media network. If
Completely
there
platform
is
agnostic.
DM communication, then you want to be having a DM conversation with the people who you want to buy from you. And it doesn't have to be, for example, I send a lot of memes, right?
Yep.
That's just what I do. And it takes me very little effort and is often very organic that I'll see something and go, oh, Cheryl would like this one. Or, oh, Grace needs to see this one. So it's really about figuring out the ways that follow-up work for you and optimizing it.
Yeah. And like I have strategies that add on to this. For example, I'll use friend filter every once in a while to create a list of like my most engaged people on social media. And I'll just go on a campaign where I'll go stop by their profiles and engage with some of their content and say, hey, and see what they're up to. Right. Or if it's appropriate, if I'll go and check our messages. Do you know how many messages I have found from people who have messaged me that I just did not notice, or I ghosted, or I did not respond, or whatever happened going through like that? And I was just able to reply like a month later, 3 months later, and keep the conversation going. That counts as follow-up, dudes.
And it's about how you process your feelings about it.
Yeah.
Because I could get into a never-ending doom spiral of guilt and shame around the people that I unintentionally ghost. It's a real thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a matter of going back through and being like, who haven't I talked to in a long time? Oh, I'd like to have a conversation with this person.
Yeah. And like sometimes if there's a really warm lead in my pipeline, they'll be, they'll respond to an email, they'll say they want something, we'll be having some back and forth and some follow-up. I'm really bad for this. I don't set reminders. I leave their email in my inbox. And when I feel like it, when I think of them, when I'm reminded of them, I drop them an email. And I'll just say, hey, I was thinking of you today. How are you doing? Did you have questions? Did you still want to do that? Right? And they'll get back to me a couple days, couple weeks later. Who knows? I try not to assign meaning to their response as much as possible, which is hard because I'm wired to assign meaning to their response or a lack of response, right? But I try not to make the decision for them as much as I can. I wait for them to actively reject me, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And I think that's really important. I have, especially in business, come to a place where nothing or not right now is not no. It's nothing or not right now. And until you actually say no to me, I'm just assuming that you forgot.
Yeah.
It
And
took
like
many years to get there.
You can scream internally the whole time and you can let that little voice just keep going and nope, they hate you. And you can be like, you know what? They're probably just like me. And this takes a level of self-acceptance that I think needs to go hand in hand with developing this skill and developing this practice and developing this patience for responses, because you really have to accept that part of yourself that ghosts messages before you can have the patience to assume that the other person just did it accidentally too, right? If you're still mad at yourself for not responding to emails on time, you're going to be mad at that other person for not responding to emails on time as well. Because you're thinking to yourself, why can't I do this? I should just be able to do it. Why can't I just respond to the email like a normal person? And then the person is going to not respond, and you're going to be sitting there like, why can't they just respond to this email like a normal person? It must be my fault. It must be because of me, right? But if you can get to the point where you just kind of, you know what? This is a thing that I do. The best time to respond to their message was when they sent it. The second best time is now, right?
Planting trees, baby. And
Yeah.
truly, that's what networking and sales is. It's really about framing. If you believe that these are opportunities that you just haven't gotten to fruit yet, then you treat them much differently than if they were obligations.
Yeah, exactly. And if you send your emails as though they're obligations, they'll be received as obligations. If you send them as opportunities, they'll be received as opportunities. And deciphering your message is an obligation. It's a demand on their time to figure out what you're trying to say, right? If you go in with someone in mind and there's something that you want to say to them, you want to partner with them, you want to collaborate with them, you want them on a summit. I got a message like that today. I was like, hell yeah, I want to be on your summit. Let's go. Let's do it. I feel like they weren't expecting that response, but they were direct and clear. So why would I not respond directly and clearly and kind, right? If you find a person you want to message, you figure out what is that person's value? Like, what is it not just that they have to offer to me, but like, why them? Why do I want to email this person? There's got to be a reason. And if there's not a reason beyond, well, they fit the demographics and target audience size that some coach told me that I should be prospecting for on LinkedIn, then you probably shouldn't be emailing them until you do a little more research, right? Because you're not going to even know if they're remotely a fit to work with you, nor are you going to have anything to talk to them about. You need to actually do your homework.
So let's talk about that process. Let's talk about writing the email or DM. What should we be doing as pre-work?
So that is actually my number one thing, is understanding, even if I don't do that much research, because it's someone I already like know of, understanding what is their value. Like, what is the value to me in this situation? What am I trying to get and why them? Because if I can understand that, I can explain it in the first sentence, right? Nothing reads worse than an email that goes, hey, I found you on Google, right? But if you're, hey, you know, I read your entire book end to end. I got the workbook. It gave me these specific points of value. And I know it's a long shot, but I wanted to reach out. Who's not going to read the next line of that email? Right? So if you can understand the value that that person has, even if it's just the value to you, and then explain what you're doing, right? And we don't need the elevator pitch version, but we need to understand what it is that you're trying to get from this email, right? So if you see this person, you've read their book, you've done their workbook, you got immense value. Let's say you want them to host a small training for your audience or something. I'd love for you to come and host a little class. I know that's a big ask. Here's what my audience is like. Would you be interested in talking about it? Maybe we could try something smaller like a podcast first. We're being super direct and explaining how they can help, right? And now we want to say, my audience size, right, is this. These are the people that I can put you in front of. We're explaining what we're offering in return. And then we just send it. We explain their value, explain what we're doing.
3 things.
It's 4. Explain their value, explain what you're doing, explain how they can help, and what you'll offer in return. That's it. And then hit send. And then be surprised, because you're going to get a lot more replies to that than the like, hey, I found you on Google and thought you might be interested, sort of cold email templates. And yes, you're still going to get ghosted.
One more time, Cheryl, for the people at home with no memories. 4 things.
Explain their value, explain what you're doing, explain how they can help, and explain what you'll offer in return. Okay. And I beg of you, do not edit the life out of your emails. Oh, please.
Oh, guilty.
You are going to second guess every third word, and the more you edit it, the more creative and convoluted it's going to get. Just state the thing. Do the fangirling. No one cares. Everyone likes feeling appreciated.
Listen, flattery will get you everywhere with almost everyone I know.
Yeah. Especially if it's honest flattery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like someone sitting here through this live stream right now. I'll tell you right now, if you message me after this and say that you watched this whole live stream and this was a takeaway that you got that really changed things for you, and you ask me for something, I'm going to listen. I'm 100% going to listen.
100%.
This isn't some sort of secret code or secret formula. This is just us neurodivergent people doing what we do best. We picked up on something, we made a connection, we want to connect with that person, we directly tell them what we got from them, explain what we're doing, explain how they can help, and explain what they'll get. And then we just send it and just let it be. I promise it works a lot better than any of the other stuff you've been trying. And if they don't respond, try and follow them on social media and start engaging with their content, because then your DMs might actually start showing up in their inbox, and then we can start the whole cycle a little bit further, right?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, for me, there is often a period of pre-stalking, and I literally call it stalking because that is what it is. If I want to connect with someone, I follow them for a while and I engage with them on social media, and when I show up in their inbox, they know who I am already. So when I ask very directly, hey, this is a thing, I think maybe once or twice I have had someone be offended by a direct message, and truly those are really low numbers at this point in time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to pretend that doesn't happen, because it does. People are having bad days. People project their own meaning onto what you're doing and what you're saying. People might be neurotypical and just not like that kind of thing. We don't know what's going on for them. We know that it does happen. And it's such a teeny, like micro amount of the replies that I get. It's almost laughable. Like the amount of dollars I've generated per cold outreach I've sent versus the amount of negative replies I've gotten. Like, you would probably have to give me pretty close to 100 grand for every negative reply I'd gotten for that to even out monetarily.
Now, can I tell you who those negative responses were from? Absolutely, I can, because my brain stores that information to remind me about it at later dates. But did those conversations mean anything in the grand scheme of this is a strategy? No, they did not.
No, I once had someone, no word of a lie, like berate me on a long phone call and tell me that the only reason they responded to my outreach was to see who would have the nerve to send something like that. That is literally word for word, burned in my brain 12 years later, what they said. And yet, here I am, still doing it. Also, fuck that guy.
Correct. 100% fuck that guy.
Like, who would have the nerve to do that? What, don't you have a business to run? Why are you wasting your time doing shit like that? Anyway, I digress. The rest of this series, we're going to get a lot more practical. I want to talk about all of the things, right? Today, we're talking about just send the damn email, because yes, it's scary, and yes, bad things might happen, but yes, it's also totally worth it, and you could be really good at it if you try. But I want to talk about things like establishing your category, right? Because like, we don't want a box, we don't want a niche, we don't want to pin ourselves into something. But if we're developing a network and that network has no idea what we do and can't name it if they're asked, that network is useless.
Absolutely 100% useless. If you rely on referrals, or even if it's just a part of your marketing strategy, people need to be able to say, Briar over here has the Neurodiversity Media Network.
Yeah. Even if they're like, Cheryl is a marketing person, I don't give a shit how narrow the label is for them. I care that they have one, right? And it should be more narrow than, oh, that's my nephew, he does things on computers. Like, we don't, that's too broad, okay? We all know people like that refer to us, and like we end up tech troubleshooting their siblings and it's all freaking weird. We don't want those labels. We got to figure out our category. So I'm going to help you figure out your category so that it can be helpful. Okay. Then we're going to talk about your point of view and why it matters, because having a point of view helps you stand out from all the other noise. You need to be contradictory. You need to be contrarian. You need to be opinionated. And this is another area we freaking shine, baby.
Terrified at the same time that we're out there saying shit that no one else will say. And it's a lot, but we'll talk about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got the swear test coming in here. Where like if you can slip a swear word into the middle of a statement about what you want to talk about and it just feels natural, that's probably something you should talk about more. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about building relatability and relevance, because that is super duper important in especially the social media side of things, right? Once you get someone into your network, you've done the outreach, you've done the networking, staying in touch with them using social. If you want them to stay engaged, it needs to be relatable. It needs to be relevant. But we need to treat our social networks as this thing. And we're going to talk about that too. This is how to make our network warm. It's how to nurture. It's how to keep those connections going without having to have a full CRM system. It's how I use my socials, right? I'll create a connection. I'll nurture that connection on social media. And then the rest of that relationship happens in the DMs. It happens in email, right? We're going to talk about a question that I like to ask people when they're like, how do I even do networking? Whatever it is that you do at a party actually can be translated to online. And we're going to have a whole episode on this. I'm going to crowdsource some opinions from people on what they do. So message me after this, by the way, if you have like a version of you that shows up at a party and wants to meet someone, like what is the thing that you do? Because I can help you translate that thing that feels comfortable to do at a party into a way that you can operate online and actually introduce yourself to people online. Some people require introductions. Some people will boldly walk right up to the person and find something in common. Some people will never utter a word to that person and follow up later. There are a bunch of different ways to get to know someone at a party that you actually want to know based on your comfort level and your specific neurodivergencies and idiosyncrasies. And a lot of them can be translated to ways of doing outreach online. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to turn network connections into revenue, because if you're not making money from it, you're just the popular kid at school. And what's the point? Like, why are we doing this? We're all in business.
Why are we here for this? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the trigger, the trust, and the transaction. Those are the 3 points of turning a network connection into revenue in some sort of way. We're going to talk about how to do more outreach to build the network. We're going to talk about using social media as that tool to warm and nurture the network. We're talking about DMs and emails to maintain the network. And then the absurdity of asking for what you want directly. And I'm hoping I might even be able to share some breaking my own rules, some scripts and some templates, because starting points are helpful even if actual scripted templates are not. Does that make sense?
And it's key that you understand the difference. A script is something that you copy and paste and make very little changes to. A template is something that you look at and build around. It's never going to be the same way twice, even if some of the pieces are. So it's really important to start figuring out ways to templatize communication. And the more that you do that, the easier it becomes. And that's true, y'all, online and in person, because I have templates. I'm autistic and weird. I have templates for talking to people about the fucking weather. I know what I want to say. I've already done all of that shit in my head, pre-thought it out, so that when I am in person with someone, it's maybe a little less awkward and a little more natural.
Yes. And we're all already good at this. Like, we've all spotted the patterns. I dare you to think, just think to yourself right now, the last time you were in conversation with someone locally, how specifically did they talk about the weather? Were they remarking on how it was too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter? Are they always talking about the rain? Is it the pervasive gray that hangs over your town all winter long? Like, what specific regional nuances are there to the weather conversations? There's patterns to these things, and we are pattern people, right? So having these patterns set out for us in our connections helps us build authentic connection. It helps us fill in the blanks in a bigger way than actually just writing "Dear John" in the blank space in like an email mail merge sort of thing, like what most people dish out, right?
And you get to have fun with it. I think that is more than anything what we'd like for you to understand here is that it feels hard and scary, and that is always going to be true.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you get past that to where it's fun?
Yeah. Right? And sending memes and oversharing and answering hard questions for people are all ways that I
Mhm.
have managed to make this fun for me. Info dumping and exploring new things, sharing obscure pieces of research, posting photos of my plants. Hello, random hyper focus people can relate to, right? Like, this is how we make it fun. The fun comes in the thought of possibility, which we all love. We all love dreaming really big and thinking of all possible futures because time means nothing. So this could be tomorrow if we try, right? Which is what these connections can bring. We all love info dumping. We all love researching. We all love spotting patterns. We all struggle navigating all the weird social, cultural nuances of neurotypical communications. But if we throw those the fuck out the window, it's only 30% of entrepreneurs that aren't going to like us anymore anyway.
So,
Yeah.
we aren't doing this on most of the series, but I actually think this is going to be really helpful here. 2 weeks between now and the next live episode, y'all have homework. Send a goddamn email. I don't care who it's to. I don't care what it's about. I want you to really think about an email or a DM that would be beneficial to you in some way. Go send it.
I'm going to up the ante a little bit on this one.
Ooh.
I think the email should be like a Hail Mary situation. I think you should think of someone that you would like to connect with that would be life changing. And we're probably not aiming for freaking Oprah here because that would be life changing for anyone. Someone that would be life changing for you, a person that you have gotten value from personally, who's a subject matter expert in an area that actually matters to you, right? We don't just want a Kardashian. We want someone who's a subject matter expert in an area that's important to you, not just a random celebrity who's important for being important. Think of that person, explain their value, explain what you're doing, explain how they can help, right? And explain what they'll get in return. And send the damn email. And then come and report back in 2 weeks for the next episode. Because to answer the questions in the chat there, yes, this is actually all happening on the podcast feed. Everything that we just talked through, this is the podcast series. We're covering all of these topics on here. So it's going to be super fun.
In terms of the Neurodiversity Media Network.com, you will be able to find these. Usually it's about 24 to 48 hours after we've live streamed, and you can find them all on the website. I am getting the last of the ones that we have already recorded up this week, and I'll get Cheryl out soon tomorrow because this series has been asked for, requested multiple times now, and I understand why. This feels so insurmountable for people, and it doesn't have to. It can be easy or fun. It may not ever be easy, but it
No.
can be a process that you feel benefits you in some way. And that's what we're after.
I want to leave with a parting thought, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like for a lot of us, like, yes, RSD is very real, and I don't want to downplay that. But for a lot of us, I think we don't send these emails because we think we're not supposed to. I think it's part of our masking. We
Mm-hmm.
think we're not supposed to. We think we're supposed to be intimidated. We're supposed to be scared. We're supposed to have permission first. We're waiting for that permission, that invitation into that circle that we'll never get invited to if we don't ask, right? And so, even though the rejection sensitivity is going to be there, I encourage you to try and notice when it's a permission thing, when it's a masking thing, when it's an I don't feel like I'm supposed to thing, and try and separate that from the rejection sensitivity, because that part may be helpful in a lot of in-person conversations. It may be helpful for safety purposes in the old social constructs of doing things, but this is the internet and we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Amen, friend. So,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this series. We're going to be building in a bunch of resources. If you have specific questions, asks, things that you need, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. We would like for this one to be as comprehensive for you as we can make it in about 10 hours with homework to rabbit hole in. That's the whole point of what we're building here. And if you are not yet subscribed to the Neurodiversity Media Network, please come over. We're building all kinds of resources like this, and we would love to have you. Cheryl, where can the good people find you? Where are they supposed to be messaging you?
Probably the best place if you actually want to get a hold of me is in the DMs on Facebook. Sorry, LinkedIn people. I'm trying, but I'm just not there yet.
We will drop links in the comments. Thank you all so much for being here today, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks after you've sent an email that's going to change your life. No pressure. See you soon. Bye.